When the evening settles and the day grows still, stories rise softly from memory's hill. These are the letters we carry inside, stories of love, loss, and pride. Welcome, my friend, to Porch Light Letters.
Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Waikanae Beach in New Zealand. Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Porch Light Letters podcast number 2439. Can oral history replace missing documents? This is a very good question and one we have been asked often. So I should start saying who's asking all these questions, shouldn't I? But yeah, if you have a question about genealogy, please let us know. And we're more than happy to incorporate it into our questions that we have each day. The other thing too is if you up here in the left-hand side, you will notice we now have a QR code that if you want to book a discovery call with us, please come and scan the code and it will take you to the website where you can book that discovery call with us. And we can get on for 30 minutes and talk about whatever the topic is of the day that you want to talk about. So when records are missing, stories often remain. So oral history fills gaps left by missing records. When documents are lost or never created, stories provide valuable insight. Memories may preserve names, locations, or even the events. Oral history becomes a key source. It's a primary source if the person was there and saw it and experienced. It is a non-primary source if the person heard about it from someone, but it got passed down through the generations. And so there is value in that because it can give you a starting place to look to see if there are records. Stories provide context that records cannot. When records exist, they really explain the experience. Here's the birth record. Here's the marriage record. Here's the death record. Here's the facts on those of information that is on those certificates. You want the story, you got to fill it in. So even when records exist, they really explain the experience. Oral history reveals emotion, relationships, and meaning, and adds depth beyond the facts. So you've got the facts that are on the birth certificate. Here is the emotion that happened around it. The emotion that happened around my birth, yes, you have the facts of when and where I was born, but my mother has a box. Well, actually, I now have the box. My mother created this box along with a scrapbook. And in the box is every single card and telegram that they received when I was born. In the scrapbook, it has everything from the label that was on my crib in the hospital, to the newspaper announcement, all the way through to all my birthday cards I received up until I was the age of 16. I have kept every card since. I don't throw out any cards. The problem is I never wrote on the back of them what year they were for. But I still have every single birthday card that was sent to me, unless it's in a missing box somewhere along the way from moving. But I never throw out any greeting cards that I get. So it's not an oral history, but it is a history in a way. And yes, the oral history comes in when you're looking at the card and go, oh, that's from so-and-so. And you go, oh, I remember that family. And you start telling the story about that family, what you remember about them. So there's those sorts of things that can happen because it's a visual prompt that can happen that can add depth to that story. So even going through and if I'm going through the box of cards and telegrams, my parents got to go, well, who are these people? And mum will then tell me who they were. So actually I must sit down with her one day and record those. That'd be really cool. Oral history still requires careful evaluation. Memories can change over time. Verification with available evidence strengthens credibility. Balance is essential. So as you're hearing these memories over time, you still got to verify them as much as you can, because it will then strengthen any credibility to any other stuff that you have. So like if all people are telling the same stories and they're all coming up with the same dates, there's obviously something about that date. Let's see what we can find. I had a client one time who mentioned that an aunt was involved in an accident that occurred that she ended up dying from the injuries from a few days later, but she couldn't remember when that was. She seemed to remember that she herself was a certain age. So I went back to newspaper articles around that certain age from the country we were that they were in at the time, and I found the whole newspaper article about it. Then I found the aunt's death certificate. or not death certificate, the death record that was in this book. And I was able to go back pages and forward pages to see other people that had died in this accident that had occurred. It was a major thing. And many people were killed in it. There was some people that were killed in it and many that were injured from it. So it was a major event. And so she had this vague memory, but couldn't actually remember the details of it. So when I found the newspaper article for her, I was able to forward that to her along with the link to the book, the scanned images from the book where her aunt is mentioned as passing away from her as a result of the injuries from this. And she could go forwards and backwards through the book to see other people who were affected by that, that didn't survive, that died from their injuries. So that for her was a valuable thing because she had this oral history that she had vague memories of. But when we were able to find the articles to back it up, that made it even stronger for her and brought back a lot more memories as well. Both sources work best together. Oral history and records complement each other. One provides narrative, the other provides structure. Facts, story go together. Together they create a fuller story. And again, more perspectives that you can get around that event, or the more rounded picture you can get of what happened, more rounded story of what you can get, and the facts are there just to back it all up. Value stories, even without confirmation, even when details cannot be verified, stories hold cultural and emotional value. They preserve identity and tradition. Memory still matters. So just because you can't verify those stories or basically prove them, they still hold value. It could be that they give you the story that they remember. You use the clues in that story to help verify the records, but you can't find any records to verify it with. Then you stretch beyond what they can remember. They might say, like, I was about 5 when this happened. Okay, so let's start looking at records from when they were 3 to when they were 8 and see if we can find records in that time. You may not be, okay, so let's go to the age of 9 and 10 and see if we can find things. Sometimes you find them out of that range. They remember it being 5. It actually happened when they were 9, type of thing. But even if you can't verify the stories with actual records like births, deaths, marriages, First Communion, if you're Catholic, baptismal records, if you can't find those details, those facts, it doesn't mean that the story is not true. It could still be true. But it will hold cultural and emotional value for that. It could be the reason that there may not be any records. They could have been destroyed over time with wars or fires, things like that. So there is no actual records of them. They just have the memories of people. And if there was a fire, and if you find that where the records were being held, there was a fire and the records were destroyed, or there was a war and the building got blown up or whatever, you can note that in your tree next to that entry to say, well, the birth date has been celebrated here. We're unable to find a birth certificate because where the vital records were held was destroyed by fire and blah, 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 blah. And put those in there. So this has been, and just put that it's been reconstructed through memories. And you can list the name of the people that have provided the details for that as well. This all matters because oral history keeps stories alive when documents cannot. So if you can't find documentation for it, look at where those records would have been held. Was there anything that happened that it could have been a flood, it could have been a fire, natural disaster or whatever that may have destroyed the area where the records were held. So document that. Say this was verbally provided by blah, 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 blah. And list all the people that gave you those details so that, they all verified this was the birth date. These are the memories from it, the stories. We're unable, and then put a note that we're unable to find official documentation to verify this information. We discovered during our research that this particular building where all the records were held at the time was destroyed by fire or was destroyed by a flood or was destroyed by an earthquake. So those records may be lost unless they had moved them somewhere else that was not notified at the time. But and you have to remember too that all the millions of records that are available online represent about 5% or less of all records available worldwide. Now let that sink in. The millions of documents that are available online represent about 5% or less of all records available worldwide. So you might not be able to find the information online, but you might require some boots on the ground and actually go do some old school research, if you want to call it that, like walking into a building to get the records. into the building where the records are held to see if you can get a glimpse at the books that these records are held in. So just because the records are not available online does not mean to say that the records don't exist. You might have to do some boots on the ground stuff for that too. So your practical takeaway is use oral history as both evidence and narrative support. And if you want help in your oral history and with oral history in your research, then just go to the QR code up here, scan that, book a 30-minute discovery call with us, and we can help walk you through maybe places that you might need to, that you haven't thought about, that you might need to go to have a look for those records. And our closing thought for today: when paper is lost, memories remain. And with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hei konera.
The stories we carry stay bright through the night, a small steady glow in the fading light. Stories of love, loss, and pride we share until we meet again. Keep the